How's your guys' week been? Charl?
Busy.
It's been all...
Busy. Yeah, busy all caps.
How about you, Casey? I know you just moved. She just moved to Tulum.
Yeah, so it's
No way.
amazing.
Permanently?
Yeah.
I'm
No,
Yeah,
I
living
do
my
like the
dream.
digital nomad thing. So every month or so, I go to a new country, a new place. So I just made my way back to Tulum.
That's
It's near and dear
amazing.
to my heart.
That's
Yeah, it looks
far.
like an amazing place.
It's not bad, I can tell you that.
There's a lot of people that go like co-work. There's co-working spaces there,
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah, there's a ton of different places. All the different areas of Tulum. You have like the central area, the town where most people stay for more long term, and then you have the hotel strip. You have the public beach. There's a variety of different places that you can co-work at, and there's even a lot of like co-working groups that have developed. There's one called Co-working Tulum that I'm a part of.
Oh wow.
I've been going to a new place every single day, and I was just here 6 months ago, and they've already shown me so many more places with stable Wi-Fi, which is key when you are in Tulum.
Yeah, we
Are
need
you
to get into
doing this
Co-working
on your
Tulum.
own?
Doing the solo travel thing. I am
Yeah.
traveling alone,
Wow.
but I tend to meet a lot of people doing something really similar, and I've never had an issue meeting up with other like entrepreneurs or making friends. I was just in Medellin, Colombia, and I like within a week I created a WhatsApp group of like 45 people that
Wow.
we all just met up at cafes and worked and
Wow.
collabed and stuff. It was pretty cool.
That's so cute. Like that's the vibe that I want. Like I'm like waiting to meet people who just want to go to cafes and work and like travel and stuff.
Right here.
All right, I'll start the pod officially. So welcome back. I don't know what episode this is. Welcome back to Untold Gems, guys.
29.
Episode 29.
Episode
Come on, Chris.
29. We've got Kacy Shea joining us on the pod today, owner of Kacy Shea Nutrition. And we've been speaking about like nutrition from time to time here on the pod, and we wanted to get like an expert on because we have a lot of questions. We've had a lot of
Yeah,
conversations
we're
about
always
this.
we're always like making opinions and like saying stuff, but we're like we need to get an actual professional to come talk to us and to like say what's the truth or not, you know?
Yes, let's get into it. I'm ready.
Yeah, so how did you get into this whole like nutritionist thing? What like started it for you?
So that's kind of a complicated story. I got my undergrad degree, my bachelor's degree in public relations, and I went into the corporate world in the US. And, you know, I did that whole thing, and it was really, really stressful. And at that same time, I was watching my grandmother who had Alzheimer's. She was declining. My grandfather had Parkinson's at the time. So there was a lot of neurodegeneration going on in my family. And if you witness that, it's really hardcore and really intense. So once my grandmother passed, I was undergoing that grief, and I had a lot of stress at my corporate job, and I was just like, screw it, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just going to figure out what I'm actually passionate about. And at that time, I was even spending my lunch breaks on PubMed researching nutrition science. I was super into wellness and all those kind of things that made me feel really good and helped me with my cognitive performance. And so I ended up spending what I thought was going to be 6 months and the rest of my life savings, just figuring my life out. And within a month, I was already pursuing my master's degree in holistic nutrition. I was getting all my certifications. I was learning to be a diagnostic nutritionist, which means I do blood work. And I started apprenticing with a naturopathic doctor. So I did that for 2 years. And then I decided right before COVID that I wanted to travel and work. And so I started my own business doing virtual sessions with clients. And that's where it kind of comes back full story with working with anxiety clients. So I focus on mental health, looking at the physiological side of nutrition for mental health, because there's a lot that we can do to increase our brain performance, our cognitive performance, and just feel really good and energized and truly happy on a day-to-day basis with our nutrition.
Yeah, and I feel like not a lot of people know that they can actually change all of that with nutrition. Like it's not really like people think that it's not possible. So basically those are your main clients, right? Like people that basically just trying to get them to change up their nutrition. What's something that you can recommend is like let's say someone brand new comes to you, what's the first thing that you would tell them to change or about their diet, or like what's the first thing you would prescribe to them?
Eat breakfast. Your mom was right. It is the single most important meal of the day. And it's not just for habit, or it's not just for routine or to check something off, but it actually affects our cortisol levels for the rest of the day. So if you ever get that like 2 to 3 p.m. slump, your energy crashes in the afternoon, you just get that brain fog, you want to take a nap, you need some chocolate or another cup of coffee, it's it's your cortisol levels based on your blood sugar. So you can stabilize that by just having a breakfast, like a proper meal. When you get up, add that to your routine, and your energy is going to be so much better. You're going to be able to perform at a much higher level just based on adding in a breakfast, something you should be eating anyway. It's food, it's delicious. Why not? And you're going to get so much benefit just from that one addition to your routine.
Well, what do you say to the people that say like they skip breakfast, or but it doesn't really hurt them? Like they actually promote skipping breakfast, because I've seen
like
a lot of
intermittent
people,
fasting.
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah, intermittent fasting is really, really interesting, and it depends on who I'm talking to. So for the research that's been done, most of the research that we have is actually done on men. A lot of the research cannot even be done on women of menstruating age because we are too varied. Our fluctuations in hormones are so different day to day that it's really, really difficult to research. It's really difficult to actually get to scientific conclusions. So for men, you have a 24-hour hormonal cycle that mimics your circadian rhythm. You're really stable. You can handle a lot more fasting. But for women, you actually can't. You need to be focusing on it in your follicular phase or in your ovulation phase. So it's a really particular part of your cycle that you actually have to be very aware of, because you are a lot more prone to having those blood sugar crashes and a lot more prone to experiencing stress or anxiety during that luteal phase. So for men, for the most part, you're going to be good. But a lot of men, I still work with a lot of men in business, a lot of entrepreneurs that are guys, and they tend to overdo it on stimulants or overdo it on caffeine and stress and just overload themselves without the proper recovery. Then you throw a HIIT workout on top of that, and you're going to be crashing. So I can guarantee you, if you added in breakfast, protein, fat, fiber, you would increase your performance and your energy throughout the day and maintain it for a lot longer.
That's literally
Well, I have a question, because I feel like she just described
That's literally Charl,
because I'm that person that drinks like 3 or 4 cups of coffee a day.
That's
But
crazy.
I'm not saying that breakfast is like a marketing play, but what would you tell someone who's on the go all the time? What's some proper or power fruits or power breakfast that they can have that could not put them to sleep, but that is efficient enough for them to keep the energy level throughout the whole day?
So for I've literally had entrepreneurs come to me and saying, I don't want to eat. Like, I don't want to spend my time eating food. And I mean, I get that. Sometimes I get annoyed that I have to break my stride. I'm like grinding, I'm getting all this stuff done, I'm pumping out content. And then I'm like, I have to feed myself. It's kind of annoying at that point. So in those situations, one thing that you can do is, if you already like coffee, you can add 2 scoops of collagen to that, get 20 grams of protein. That's enough to stabilize your blood sugar. You could also add some MCT oil to that, which is actually digested in a different form. It doesn't have to go through this long digestive process in the gut. It goes straight to the liver, ketones to the brain. You're going to get a lot more energy and clarity a lot quicker. So that can help with your performance, still give you those stabilizing macronutrients where you're going to feel better a lot later in the day, but not necessarily disrupt your routine or your preferences first thing in the morning.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And can you explain what's MCT oil for anyone that doesn't know?
For sure. It's medium chain triglycerides. So if you take coconut oil and you isolate it down, you can get these different types of MCTs. So they're medium chain triglycerides. They're just a type of fatty acid. And when you can isolate them down, it changes the way that you're digesting it. So instead of the full form coconut oil, this is a lot more direct, and you're going to get a lot more of those cognitive and energetic benefits from it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I know there's a huge wave of people adding it to their coffee. Like, I see it all the time, but I just never really, I never really understood. I knew that it had to do something with coconut oil, but I never really understood exactly what it was. But between the two, like, I mean, does it depend on the person that you would tell them to do something different? But like, what's the difference? Like, what's the like benefits that collagen would give you versus MCT oil? Like, which one would you choose?
So I would do both, but if I was just going to have to choose one, I would do the protein. So the
Can you
collagen
mix them?
is yeah, you could. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
cool.
You could mix them. It's kind of like a
There you go,
bulletproof
Charl.
coffee.
Okay,
Yeah, you can definitely mix them. That's going to keep you fuller longer. So the reason I would say to add the MCT oil is because it is a fat source. So it's going to give you more calories without having to like actually have a meal. So it's going to be a little bit more stabilizing, keep you energized for longer. It's going to hold you over, basically keep that stride going. The protein is really like the necessary one. You need protein first thing in the morning for your metabolism to stabilize your blood sugar and your subsequent cortisol, aka stress hormone levels later in the day.
So basically, you don't, like, the people that come see you, you're not really focused on, I mean, I guess it's like a byproduct of it, but you don't focus on like gaining or losing weight. It's more about the benefits on the mental health, right?
And what's really interesting is that I always say, even in my application form to work with me, I say I'm not a weight loss nutritionist, but I can do it. I just find it boring. And I would rather set you up in a way that your lifestyle and your dietary preferences, you lose weight if you need to, as a side effect. It's a happy, healthy side effect of doing what you need to do to support your mental and physical health. It doesn't have to be something that you're, really striving for, that you're putting in all this cardio and you're cutting calories and you're feeling like shit from it. You could just have it as a happy side effect of what you're doing to feel good every single day.
Right, right. So for the people that, let's say, that have anxiety or depression and that come see you, what are like the main things that you focus on to get them to a better place?
So getting them in terms of their nutrients, that's one of the number one things that I see. I run labs on all my clients, so I'm looking at their actual blood work. I'm not necessarily guessing. I have a pretty good idea when I talk to them, but I'm using labs to figure out what's going on. And I would say that the number one thing that has to be corrected is nutrient deficiencies. So even if you're out in the sun all the time, your vitamin D levels may be horrible. And at least in the US, it's like over 80% of people have a vitamin D deficiency, depending on what time of the year it is, especially going into the fall and into the winter months. So it's something that is a very small thing. It seems very trivial, but it makes a massive, massive difference. But there's complexities behind it that you need to have the proper magnesium levels to maintain good vitamin D levels. So if you're just going to Walgreens and grabbing a vitamin D or trying to lay out in the sun, but you don't have proper mineral stores, you're actually not going to improve that. And so that's kind of what I look at is, okay, what's going on within you specifically, and how can we optimize these different levels so your body can function perfectly? Because if we give the body what it needs, kind of like money, if we give an entrepreneur a ton of money, they're going to do what they need to do. You don't have to tell them what to do. You don't have to instruct them. You don't have to be super hyper vigilant about it. The body is the same way. If you give it what it needs, it's really going to give you exactly what you want out of it.
Mm.
And would you say that vitamin D and magnesium are like the base? Like would you recommend everyone to take those like as a base like supplement that that everyone should take, or does it really depend on their blood work and everything?
I would say if I'm going for like the most generalized supplement recommendations, I would say magnesium for sure, just because our soil is pretty depleted of magnesium in general. So it's a lot harder to get from food. I'm always going to be a fan of food first where possible. So for vitamin D, I would say get it from the sunlight. Go outside, get your 15 minutes on naked skin without sunscreen, without, sunglasses on. Get that, and as long as you're taking a magnesium source, then that's going to take care of itself.
Should be good.
And then as long as you have a varied diet, you should be good for the most part. Just make sure you're hitting all your macronutrients and you're actually able to absorb them. So that's something else that I see is a huge, huge issue is people can eat all the right stuff, but if you're not actually able to digest and absorb those different macronutrients or micronutrients, it could really screw you over. One thing I see all the time is that people are not even absorbing the protein. Like imagine you're going to the gym, you're putting in all this effort, but your body can't even absorb the amino acids from that protein. And then you're going to have lessened cognitive function. You're going to have a lot harder time building muscle and seeing performance in all areas of your life.
And so why would that happen, that they wouldn't be able to like absorb it? Like why, like what causes that?
Okay, so this is the biggest thing that I can say here is that when you're in fight or flight, when you're drinking 3 cups of coffee a day, when you are chronically stressed, you're adding that HIIT workout on top, you have 12 hours of meetings a day, and you're going, you're in that grind mode, your body's in your fight or flight state. It's your survival state. So this is not just something we kind of feel emotionally or mentally, it's a physiological state. It's very different than your normal optimal function. And so when that happens, a lot of different processes kind of cascade. And one of them is that our digestion is impaired. So we actually lower our stomach acid, which we need stomach acid to be at the right amounts to actually absorb some micronutrients like iron and our B vitamins, but also for our amino acids from protein.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like you described my day to day. And for people who are within that grind culture, and like I know a lot of people skip meals and you have to drink coffee, etc. What are some recommendations for people who aren't able to compact everything in the day to make sure that they have all the proper nutrients? Is there a way that you could have like a cheat code to make sure that, I don't know if it's supplements or multivitamins, but is there a way that you could compact everything like that so that you're not deficient in it?
Yeah, so I would say it's optimizing your digestion. Eat a good diet, you'll be good. Supplements are great, but they're like a cheat code. They're not going to necessarily help you for the long term. They can be treatment oriented, but for the long term, it's correcting the core underlying issue, which would be that impaired digestion. So the number one thing that you can do is you can acutely switch yourself out of that fight or flight state and into your rest and digest, which, as the name states, is really the optimal nervous state to be in to digest and absorb your nutrients. So that would be the best thing that you can do is actually just through a breathing pattern. You can take 60 seconds before you eat. Once you get off your calls, try not to eat in a distracted state when you're on the phone, when you are, typing something up or you're scrolling on TikTok. Try to give yourself like actually a minute to switch out of that state from distraction and take a few deep breaths. When we breathe into the lower part of our abdomen and our lower like diaphragmatic cavities, we actually kind of do belly breathing, as they call it in yoga. Instead of breathing shallowly into our chest, it sends a signal consciously from our body through our nervous system to our brain that says, hey, we're safe. We're not being chased by a tiger. We don't need to survive right now. So let's optimize for digestion in this state. So that would be the easiest hack that you can do is try not to eat in a distracted state and take a few belly breaths before you start eating. And that's going to like really maximize the amount of nutrients you're going to be able to extract from your food. And it's also going to do a number on any bloating that you experience. You're going to feel a lot better from it. And you're typically not going to feel as tired after you eat.
Okay, I'm trying that literally after this.
Yeah, me too, because I find myself always like stressing when I eat, or like I always need to do something else when I'm eating, because I don't want to just be eating. So yeah,
I'm just always bloated.
I agree with that.
I'm just always bloated when I eat, so I'm trying that for sure.
Yeah, it's the cortisol reaction of it. It's really prevalent, but that's something else is if you're constantly going, you're in this grind culture, you have a lot to accomplish. You probably need some time and space just for your own thoughts, to allow yourself to have emotions, to allow yourself to assess the experiences you've had for the day. And I promise you, your ideas, everything that you come up with is going to be a lot better. You could have like the best brainstorm of your life whenever you're actually giving yourself those 60 seconds. That's when everything that you consciously work towards, you're allowing your subconscious to surface. You're actually tapping into it. So it's great for your digestion. It's great for your mental health and physical health, but it can really skyrocket what is building back there in the subconscious of the brain and bring it forward for you.
Yeah, I feel like we're always all distracted, and like humans, like at this point in the world, like we all have such low attention spans. Like we're like no one can actually focus on like just listening to themselves or anything. Like everyone's so like just always like with screens in our faces. Like we're never able to actually be alone. Like it's insane. So I think that's a really good tip. But I wanted to ask you, because earlier you mentioned counting calories. I wanted to ask you, what's your opinion on that? Like, what would you recommend someone to count their calories, or do you think it's a little bit like not the best solution?
So if you're trying to lose weight, you got a lot of weight to lose, it's effective for sure. It works.
Yeah.
My personal kind of opinion on this is that your body has a happy set point. It really does. And you can get there without counting calories. If you have a certain day you want to look a certain way by, for sure, counting macros, counting calories, scientifically, it is really, really effective. But most people, we actually have evidence on this that shows that people who diet, 95% of them not only gain their weight back, they gain back at a surplus of that weight. That's literally what you learn in nutrition.
Yeah, that's so sad.
It's crazy. So if you're able to lose that weight and just let your body get to that happy set point naturally by practicing, metabolism hacks, like just eating breakfast is so great for your blood sugar, really managing your stress levels and sleeping. Sleep is one of the number one things that you can do to actually improve your weight loss. So, and it just makes it a lot easier to maintain muscle mass, which muscle mass is going to help to burn more calories throughout the day by increasing just the amount that your body needs to function in general without you having to do anything extra. So there are definitely ways, and I'm all about kind of manipulating your situation to get the most effort with the most benefits with the least amount of effort, or the least amount of kind of inputs on your end. Because I'm an entrepreneur, I got a lot going on. I travel the world. I'm in a new place all the time. I want to get the most bang for my buck for what I'm doing. And I want to give, everyone that I'm working with the exact same benefit as well. So for sure, calorie counting works, but there's also other ways that work and are a lot more enjoyable in the process.
For sure.
Speaking of that, like there is a popular thought that eating healthy is expensive. So what would you say, like, cheap foods or like good cheap foods or that you can buy to help with your mental health?
So Whole Foods are always going to be like the best option. So you can go get, an avocado, an apple, a banana. Think about the things that are in the produce section. If you're in the grocery store, the majority of your budget should be spent on the outside, the perimeter of the grocery store. Those are going to be Whole Foods where you're not necessarily going to be spending as much money because typically they're going to be a lot more seasonal. So seasonal eating is a really good strategy as well, because you're not having to worry about import costs or transportation costs or anything else like that. So looking at farmers markets as well to see what is right in your area, what is local, what is not having to, be transported across the world is going to be a lot cheaper and a lot more accessible. It's going to be a lot better for your body based on whatever season and location you're in. But some of my top favorite foods for that, like avocados, are amazing for your cognitive function. You actually can get L-tryptophan from it, which can turn into serotonin. So
really?
We all want to be happier. We all want better sleep. Serotonin turns into melatonin. So these are some of the kind of neuronutrition foods that we focus on. And avocado is an amazing source of fatty acids. It's amazing at stabilizing your blood sugar levels. It tastes really good. Everyone loves avocado toast and guacamole and all those kinds of things. It can really spice up your food. So that's one that is really, really good for you. It's good for your brain and for your physical health as well. Berries are a really good option of high vitamin foods that are typically pretty accessible. And I wouldn't say you have to buy everything organic. Rinse it with an apple cider vinegar wash. Organic definitely makes things a lot more expensive in terms of produce, and it's not necessary, especially the foods that kind of have a natural wrapping on them, like bananas and coconuts and avocados and things like that.
Hmm.
And I wanted to ask, because you mentioned, well, obviously you're living in Tulum right now.
Mm-hmm.
How do you personally, or like, how do you find you're able to stay healthy while traveling around so much? Because like me, every time I travel, I'm like, I lose my routine completely. I end up eating so horribly. I eat like croissants
Mm-hmm.
and like coffee for breakfast, and I just feel gross all the time. So please, I need some like recommendations on what to do, how to stay healthy basically when traveling.
Yeah, so the first thing that I do is I always develop a routine. I travel around a lot. My environment changes up a lot. My work schedule is super hectic, so I'm really routine oriented and it keeps me grounded no matter where I am. And so the first things I do is I find my grocery store. I find a place where I can actually get that fresh produce, and I typically stay around the tropical areas, so it's really easy to find like a fruit stand or a produce stand. You could just go to any grocery store, and I find a gym. I find a walking path. And then I make sure I find somewhere safe that I can get up to watch the sunrise and watch the sunset. So I'm really taking into account my cortisol patterns, my circadian rhythm, and all those kind of different things, making sure I get in my movement and my food. And then of course I have a place to stay. So I'm good on my sleep. So those are kind of the main anchors that I need to focus on to make sure I'm really stabilizing myself and grounding myself in whatever environment I'm in.
And do you meal prep at all?
I do sometimes, but very, very rarely. Like right now, I would say that 99% of my meals I'm eating out.
Wow.
But it's near like you have, I guess, like healthy places around you.
Mm-hmm.
And you always like when you plan, because you're living there, so obviously you're like making sure that there's all of these things around you. But do you ever take like short-term vacations where, like there's only like airport food, airline food? Like what do you do in those situations when you have to take a plane or something like that where it's kind of limited, there's no grocery store? What can you recommend is like a snack that you can bring or something like that?
Yeah, so luckily now airports, I feel like I'm always in an airport, but they have a ton of options, especially in the US. They are really bolstering up the options that they have in terms of like, I've seen like grass-fed jerky, and that's a great option. You have, raw nuts. Even if you're just going to an airport bar, they're going to have, some sort of raw nuts or at least salted nuts on the table. That's going to be something, right? But you really, I would say, you can bring your own snacks. You can be that person that brings a whole lunchbox through, but why are you going to do that? If you're on vacation, be on vacation. Your body can handle some non-perfect foods. We can drink alcohol, we can take drugs, and our body can bounce back in a few days, right? I don't think we give ourselves enough credit that our bodies can handle all these different types of food. Airplane food is not great for you. Definitely don't drink the coffee or the tea. That's absolutely horrible. They don't clean it. They don't clean the container. It's disgusting. But in those moments, I would say just enjoy it. Or, I was just in the airport. I went and got Chick-fil-A and I brought her on the plane. And I'm saying that as a holistic nutritionist. I love Chick-fil-A and I'm not in the US a lot. So that's something that I wanted. I desired it. So I had it and I can trust in my body that it can digest it, that I'm still going to be healthy after it. And then once I get to wherever I'm going, I'm making sure that I'm balancing it out because I want to enjoy my vacation. So I'm not going to be like pounding tequila all night and then go have cake for breakfast the next day. If I want the tequila all night, I'm going to make sure I'm having an omelet with like a side salad for breakfast. Yeah. I'm going to make sure, you know, if I'm going to be day drinking at a beach club or I want to go out for a friend's birthday and have a ton of cake, then I'm going to make sure earlier in that day I have some green on my plate. Maybe I'll go get a smoothie or maybe I'll get a smoothie bowl or something like that. But it doesn't have to be all about health or all about partying or all about enjoying. You really can find a decent balance between all of that if you have that intention.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like so many people have a very like all or nothing mentality where it's like they want to be completely perfect and like and I feel like the moment that they screw up their routine, they just give up on everything. So what can you like, how can someone introduce balance into their life? Like what's a suggestion? Because I feel like I struggle with this too. Like Chris, I'm sure Charl too. I think almost everyone struggles to like let go of that all or nothing mentality. How can you start introducing balance like into your life?
You can do it slowly. Just add one thing in. And I would say when you add that thing in, like, let's say if you are, you know, working all day and you're so used to getting up, like for me, I'm super productive first thing in the morning and I want to get up and I want to use my creative energy. I want to crush it. Like I could get up at 4 a.m. every day and work for the first 8 hours of the day and I'm good. I don't need anything. I don't have to care about myself at all. But I have a mandatory practice of watching the sunrise and getting up and doing my movement. And if I do nothing else the rest of the day for myself, I have to do those things. Not only do I feel a lot better, but I've kept a promise to myself. So that makes me feel really trustworthy. And if I'm asking my clients or I'm marketing and asking other people to trust me, I should do what I say. If I'm asking other people to do what I say, I need to do what I say. Otherwise, I have no authority. How can I ask other people to do that? Yeah, so I would say introduce one thing. So maybe for me, it's getting up, watching the sunrise. Okay, cool. I know the steps I need to take that. But it's only one thing. In the grand scheme of my day, it is one thing I have to do. So let me add that in. Oh, it sucks. It sucks to get up really early. It sucks to figure out when the sun is going to rise, right? There's steps I need to take to get there, but lean into the discomfort. You do hard things all day long. Let this one hard thing that you do be for you.
Yeah. And so you watch the sunrise every single morning?
Mm-hmm.
That's like the cutest routine I've ever heard. Like I'm going to start doing this too.
It makes me so happy. I mean, I'll do different things. Sometimes I'll drink coffee. Sometimes I'll journal. Sometimes I'll just sit there and watch it. But there's so many benefits from it. It actually helps to sync your circadian rhythm. It helps to decrease stress levels later in the day. It helps to stabilize energy. It helps you sleep deeper and better and more productively at night. So of course, there's a lot of benefits to it. But most importantly, it's my promise to myself. Like I said, I'm not going to break that. I'm asking other people to listen to me and to trust me. So I'm going to do what I say.
Yeah, that's motivating me right
now. With inflation prices going through the roof and like families having to make tough decisions, what is some advice for like, parents who have young children that want to give them a healthy balance but don't have the budget to potentially give them all the fruits and vegetables they would need? So are there like specific foods or power foods that are more advantageous than others?
I would say there's definitely an option to eat healthy on every single budget. I think it's more so about where you're getting those foods from. Try not to shop at the Whole Foods. If you're trying to go for those things, there are farmers markets. Farmers markets are going to be one of the best options. And yes, there's more expensive foods there in terms of like maybe the egg prices or kind of the animal products, the meat and things like that. But the produce is actually a lot cheaper because it's locally sourced, so they don't have to transport as far. And then also it's in season. So those are two of the main factors that actually affect the price for different things. If we're importing something from Costa Rica, it's going to be a lot more expensive than if your neighbor grew it.
And where can you find like what's in season? Like how can you find that information? I guess you can Google it, but like is there like a website where someone can go or something?
Yeah, so there's quite a few different websites that are from the government that will tell you you can even type in your zip code. And I can't remember what it is on the top of my head, but I can send it to y'all. But there are quite a few different websites where you can literally type it in and it'll tell you exactly for your zip code, for your city, what is right there and ready and available for you.
Yeah, that's really cool.
How do you feel about meat? You mentioned meat. Like, are you do you promote meat or are you against meat?
I actually really can't stand labels. So I work with a variety of different clients. I personally myself eat meat. I love meat. I'm from Texas. Like I will eat a fillet every single day of my life. So I do enjoy animal products, but when I can, I really focus on the quality of meat. That's going to be the most important thing. It's going to determine the animal welfare, the environmental impact, but also the amount of nutrients and how your body is actually able to process the meat. So I would say the quality for sure is really important. But again, if you're on a budget, meat is a really good source for the most part of protein and then sometimes for fat as well. So I would say that is first and foremost the main thing is finding out what different foods you enjoy and don't let like all the social media people who are out here just trying to get views and clicks and trying to trigger you on purpose with words like vegan and carnivore and all those types of things. No, take care of yourself first and like screw the labels. They don't really matter. If you enjoy a food and it is good for you, it's serving a purpose for you, that emotional association with food is going to be a lot more important than what somebody else thinks about it.
Yeah.
But
Could you break down for the people the importance of AAA meat compared to other types of meat? Because I think a lot of people, they'll see it at a restaurant, they'll see it at a grocery store, but they don't understand the importance of when there's a price tag associated with it.
So when we're looking at meat, we really want to look at where it is sourced from. So we have different qualities of it based on the animal welfare, which is going to determine like the marbling. Like if we're looking at a steak, then you typically want something for the highest like nutrition quality, the highest health quality. You want pasture raised, 100% grass fed. Grass fed and grass finished is going to be the highest standard of that. You can find that at most grocery stores, especially health grocery stores. They'll actually have it labeled. For the most part, we don't really see that on a lot of menus unless you're at more of a steakhouse or something like that. But that's actually going to produce less marbling, which is why it's healthier. But it's not going to have the same taste as something that is a lot more fat in terms of steak. So those are typically going to be things that have a lot more of a supplemental diet. So things like corn and soy and all those different types of things, because it's actually going to, just like it would in humans, make you more fat, which is going to produce more flavor for the meat. And of course, it's going to be a little less healthier, but it would taste better. So that is a big difference between your 100% grass-fed or grass-fed, grass-finished, and just more non-labeled meats, more so in the red meat category.
The reason I was asking about the meat is like I remember watching, I don't know if you've ever watched, like there's a documentary on Netflix. It's like the game changer, game plan, something like that.
Yeah, it's a vegan
where it's like
documentary.
it's a vegan documentary where it like exposes the meat marketing, how it was marketed to people, especially to men, like, oh, if you don't eat meat, you're a pussy, basically. And so how do you know when you do research, like, because it was pretty compelling, that documentary, as like to why not, as to why you shouldn't eat meat. Like I eat meat, I love meat, like, but that documentary was like, oh wait, am I actually wrong now? So how do you make sure like the research you're looking at is actually correct? Because you can do research and find one thing that's really compelling on one side and then the same thing on the other side. So like, how do you make those decisions?
Yeah, so research is really complicated in that way, is that I could say, are Skittles good for me? And if I believe that Skittles are good for me, I could search that into PubMed and I could find a research study that backs it up. So it can be really, really confusing. So the number one thing that you want to look at whenever you're looking at studies or you're looking at kind of a variety of different kind of resources, documentaries included, is you want to look at who is sourcing it. Like who is actually paying for this information? Who's paying for the studies? Who's paying for the documentary? What is the motive behind it? And what do they stand for? If PETA is putting out a documentary, it's not going to be fair information. It's going to be in service of their plan. They're putting their money into it. It's marketing.
Yeah.
If a carnivore company is doing the same thing, or a meat company, or it happened with sugar, it happened with milk, and that's always how it's going to be. It's just marketing. And so that's why we need to have, I personally believe in having a variety of information. If you believe one thing, you should be researching the opposite search terms. If you are vegan, you should have a fair understanding of all of the different carnivore arguments. Not to say one is better than the other. I believe in neutral everything. But you should really put in the effort to understand the other side. And so that's the number one thing, is if you go in with a bias, you're going to get a biased answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a quick question, because Kacy, my goal for 2023 is to clean my gut and basically start from scratch.
Oh yeah.
Because I read somewhere that your gut basically controls everything. Is people focus on the hard things, everything, but it's really the gut that controls everything. Is there a methodology to explain what that is? And if so, what are some things that I can implement that other people can implement to clean the gut and really start over for the new year?
For sure. So the gut is responsible for a lot of different things. It's where most of your immune system is housed. And if you want to think about it, your gastrointestinal tract is kind of like the outside of your body. You put in food, but through the lining of your GI tract, you actually have these little like hairs in there that are responsible for absorbing nutrients. But you have a lot of your immune system there that is there to defend it. If something is bad for you, your immune system defends it and it goes out and you shit it out, right? Your body eliminates it. It has a really good protection mechanism. And if it's something that's going to benefit you, like a nutrient, your body's going to absorb it. And then it goes into your bloodstream and then it gets circulates throughout the entire body and it goes where it needs to go. So that is the most important thing that's going on. And that's where most people have their issues with their gut, is that lining of the GI tract. They have a lot of inflammation there. So there's a lot of things the gut or that the immune system is having to differentiate between. Is this good for us or is this bad for us? Do we need to eliminate it or should we let it into the bloodstream? So the number one thing I would say is to help that lining, is to restore it. We can get little nooks on it. And this is something, if you've ever heard of leaky gut, that's what that is we can have things seep into the bloodstream that shouldn't, things that are bad for us. We can have, different toxins, we can have parasites, we can have a variety of different things that are not necessarily supposed to be allowed into the body, can seep into our bloodstream and circulate. So the number one thing I would say that is actually, there's two options here. A really, really good thing you can do and take to restore the lining of the GI tract to soothe that inflammation is going to be L-glutamine. A lot of people take this in the gym, but it's a really good way to soothe the lining of the GI tract and help to start to rebuild that lining. If you don't want to take a supplement, aloe vera juice or aloe vera plant, you can put it in some water and blend it up.
I keep seeing everyone doing it.
Yep, it's super helpful. There's a ton of research on it, and it's one of the number one dietary things that you can do if you have any sort of IBS or gastrointestinal discomfort or digestive issues. It's going to help to soothe that inflammation so your body can naturally heal up, and it's naturally going to take care of some of the excess bacteria and things like that that can cause even more inflammation and can worsen the permeability of that lining.
To drink aloe vera?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fire.
Yeah, aloe vera and L-glutamine. Aloe vera is kind of like the food option, and then you have L-glutamine as the supplemental option, and they're both extremely, extremely effective.
And what about probiotics? Like, I know everyone says take probiotics. What's your opinion on that?
I'm always going to go for food sources first. I think that's just a little bit more sustainable long term. But probiotics can be extremely, extremely helpful. If you have taken a ton of antibiotics throughout your life, you could be extremely depleted, and that could lead to a lot of issues down the road or even currently. And in that case, I would say for sure, definitely take a probiotic. You want to make sure it's live bacteria. You want to make sure it's not dead. So typically these are refrigerated or they're shelf stable. And you want to make sure that you're getting a variety of different strains of bacteria. And each different type of strain, we have a ton of research on it, can do something different for you. But for the most part, as long as you take a really good, high quality probiotic after some antibiotics, or if you're having extreme gastrointestinal distress or digestive distress, and then as long as you pair that with prebiotics and some probiotic food sources, you'll be solid. Because probiotics are just the live bacteria.
Okay, so what's the difference between prebiotics and probiotics?
So probiotics are the live bacteria. Yeah. Prebiotics are the food that they need to thrive.
Okay.
So if you just put like an army in your GI tract, cool, they're going to die. You didn't give anything to sustain them. So you actually have to take both a prebiotic and a probiotic. And typically the prebiotics are just going to be really fibrous foods. So if you're eating a high veggie diet, you're going to be good on that. For the most part, a few starches, some fibrous vegetables, and you should be good as long as you're taking both of those things in at the same time.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, I have a question because on our podcast, mental health is something that's very important to us, and I know these last few months, especially during COVID, there's a lot of attention put on, especially pregnancy and postpartum depression. I just want to know if you could touch on ways that people who give birth or even during the pregnancy can improve their health and just their mental health as well, but also can you just talk about the myth of eating your placenta after giving birth? Is that actually something that changes the mental aspect? Does it give boost to the energy, or is it just a myth that the Kardashians started?
I will be honest, I'm not an expert into nutrition, so I don't have a comment on that. I'm definitely not qualified to answer that one, but I am definitely qualified to answer the first part of that question, and that is what you can do to kind of prevent or treat, because we say postpartum depression, but it actually begins in pregnancy. A lot of women really feel that as they are actually pregnant, there's so many changes that are going on. I mean, they're creating life. Like it takes a huge toll on their body. And it sucks the nutrients out of them, quite literally, to create a human being inside them. But when it comes to the actual pregnancy side of things and postpartum depression, there's a lot of research that's actually shown in the research, but also in my practice, I've seen this be really effective, is using a very specific strain of bacteria in a probiotic form, Lactobacillus rhamnosus. This is one thing. I had one client who was pregnant. I was with her pre-pregnancy, all through pregnancy and postpartum, and she started feeling some depressive symptoms, and we simply added in the Lactobacillus rhamnosus, and she said it was night and day. She had, after I think it was like 3 or 4 days, she had no more like during pregnancy symptoms of depression, and it was a significant increase in her energy and her overall stability of her mood. All while her hormones were kind of fluctuating, and she never experienced any postpartum depression. So that is, I would say, the number one thing that should be spoken about a lot more with postpartum depression is this one particular strain of bacteria has been proven and shown in the research to be extremely, extremely effective for it.
Yeah, that's
What do you think is
amazing.
not promoted enough? Is it because of marketing? Is it lack of awareness? What makes it like first time I hear about this? Is there a
Yeah,
reason
me
why it's
too.
not promoted throughout the doctors in the world?
Well, if we're talking about from your doctors are not nutritionists. They're trained in
Mm,
medicine. So we shouldn't be getting our nutrition advice from our doctors. They're not educated. They actually have 6 to 8 hours in their entire degree on
Wow.
nutrition. They're just not
Wow.
qualified. So if you go to your doctor for medicine, go for medicine, go for treatment of illness, go for, a surgery. That's what they're trained for. We have nutritionists and dietitians for nutrition advice. And especially when we're looking at things like pregnancy, pre-pregnancy, conception, postpartum, all that kind of stuff. That's a really niche category. So I wouldn't say that there's any kind of conspiracy theory around it or anything. It's just, if you're not pregnant, you're not really going to be seeking out that information.
Yeah. And how can someone take that strain of bacteria? Like, in what form is it? Like a pill form?
So they even have food source forms, but for the most part, the most accessible one is going to be in like a capsule form.
Okay.
How long have you been doing this? I don't know if you mentioned it, but like,
Yeah, I'm trying to think, what year is it? I have been doing this for around 5 years at this point. So
Wow.
the first 2 years I was apprenticing with the naturopathic doctor, and I was doing all my training and my education and that kind of stuff. And then for the past 3 years I've been doing this within my own practice.
okay. And do you have like any like YouTube videos, or are you planning on writing like a book or something, or like how are you getting your information out there?
So right now I use Instagram for the most part. That's really the only kind of platform that I have used. I've started TikTok a little bit, and that's kind of all I've needed so far to grow my business,
Mm,
which is awesome. But I am planning in 2023 a pretty big expansion of my business. So it's going to include all of the above, all the different
nice.
things.
Nice, nice. So do you make like reels? Because sorry, I don't like
Mhm.
follow your content. I will
Yeah.
starting today, but yeah. So like, do you post reels, or like what kind of content
Mhm.
do you do?
Yeah, so mostly reels and carousels. And I would say the number one source that I use for marketing, and then also just to share information, is actually stories. It's where I've seen the most conversions, more so than reels, even though it has a much bigger reach, more so than in feed posts. I just find that stories convert a lot better because I get to be myself a lot more, and I get to actually share things in a much more, I guess, acceptable or receptible form and format, and that seems to be the most effective way that I enjoy, but also that converts for my business.
Cool. Cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
feel
have
like
a quick
stories are more
question.
personal. Sorry, go ahead,
Yeah,
Charl.
sorry. This is one question. I see that strong men, like especially in North America, testosterone levels are like at the lowest it's ever been.
Mm,
Can you talk about
Hmm.
why that is, and is there anything that men could take to implement a higher testosterone level? And I don't want to go all the way conspiracy, but is there a reason why testosterone levels are decreasing at a rapid pace, or is it just the way the body is naturally?
Well, infertility is at an all-time high right now. So it's not just men, it's women as well. We are seeing so many issues with women's hormonal health as well. Pregnancy is really difficult to come by right now. It's, those births that are happening just randomly are not really occurring as much as they have in the past. And there's a lot of different reasons for this, but I mean, for women, birth control is a massive component to it. Not that they're taking it, but they're usually prescribed it to cover up any hormonal issues like PCOS at 14, right? That's an infertility issue. And we're seeing that we're just using a mask for that for, the next 10 years until they're ready to get off of it and actually have a kid. But something very similar is going on with men, but it's more so a lifestyle thing. Men are not being pushed in the same way that they have been evolutionarily. Most men can sit on a laptop and be good all day. They're not getting up. They're not exercising in their body. The number one thing you can do to improve your testosterone is to use your body, to use your muscles. If you did some really heavy leg presses 3 times a week, your testosterone could skyrocket. I've had someone double their testosterone in a month and a half.
Wow.
To within optimal ranges just from adding in some leg presses, some really heavy leg presses. Yeah. So there's a lot of crazy things if we want to get into like the health behind testosterone and what men are willing to do to increase their testosterone and what is really, really effective. We have some crazy science behind it, but if you want to be baseline, you want to be really easy and accessible, go lift some heavy weights, go do some hard things, go be out in nature. Those are all the things that you can do that are really going to help to optimize your hormones just in general.
Mm.
I didn't know testosterone like can just build by working out. That's crazy.
It can happen in women too.
Wow. Can you eat, like if you eat a certain food, can it help you build up your testosterone?
So you can eat hormone supporting foods, but it's not like you're going to get testosterone specifically from a food. So yeah, you want to focus on fats. So making sure you have a proper balance of your fatty acids, it's going to be crucially important for making sure you're able to synthesize and balance out all your hormones.
Do you happen to have more like men come to you for advice or women, or is it like 50-50?
I would say it's more women just because I market more to women, but I do have a ton of male clients in terms of usually it's actually like business people that want to come and kind of optimize their brain function and their cognitive function, or they are the husbands of the people I work with. Or the dads. Like once I work with one, I usually end up working with the whole family because they're like, oh, I want that for my husband as well. Please, my libido's up. We need to work on him.
Nice.
Yeah, it's crazy that like food can have such a big impact on like just everything you can do in life, and I think it's so important, especially for entrepreneurs who I don't know, like I feel like because we're doing so much and like, I don't know, it's so hard to balance everything, but I don't know, I think it's really cool that that's your specific niche is like just mental health and like increasing your brain power or whatever. In terms of your customers, like do they ever like specifically come to you for depression, let's say? Like have you ever had somebody that specifically says that, or is it mainly brain power?
No, I have a ton of people that come to me that are like, I've been dealing with depression. I've been on lithium. I've been on SSRIs. I've been on a variety of like a cocktail of medications.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that too.
They'll come to me.
The medication stuff.
Yeah, so I have people very explicitly come to me and they're like, I have this diagnosis. This is what I've tried. Talk therapy's been like okay, but it hasn't really worked. Most people want to come and try nutrition, something that seems so simple. They think it has to be complicated once they've tried everything else and they're still suffering.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, because like I know that in our, I guess, world right now, a lot of the times it's like if you go to the doctor, they're just gonna slap you pills. They're just gonna write you a prescription and say, here's some pills. Like not a lot of times will they really like sit down with you and actually, I don't know, see if there's a solution without drugs. It's usually just here's some drugs and that's it. It kind of bothers me. Like I think it's November. It's like mental health awareness for men, I think. So I think it's really important that people understand that like nutrition or like your daily lifestyle and like what you're consuming can really help with that instead of medication. It's crazy.
Yeah, they call that the diagnosis in audios.
Yeah.
Like you sit there with the doctor, but again, I don't want to like vilify doctors at all. They're doing what they do really well.
Yeah, some people will need it. Yeah,
they need it, and they can be super effective, but also like they get billed on their time. Like they have to go through all these codes and these insurance and all that kind of stuff. So doctors are doing the best that they can, but there are other options out there, which is why it's awesome to kind of know what you're working on. You have a variety of different options of who you can work with, where you can get that support from. We tend to think only of doctors when it comes to our health, but you have so many more people out there, so many options that can really help you no matter where you are in your health journey.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the thing, like I'm really thinking right now, like everyone goes to the doctor, like you said, for nutrition advice too, but that's not what they're there
they're not
for.
specialized in that.
But like we've grown up, like the way I grew up, like, and I'm sure a lot of people is that way too. Like my parents would tell me like, or go see the doctor, but like the same guy every time I had a problem with anything. But I think because in Canada, like we have free healthcare, so like go see the doctor, it's free for us. Whereas like seeing a nutritionist or a psychologist or anything like that is like you have to pay for it. So I think that's also where like it comes from. I feel like people who have money don't have this sort of problem. But yeah.
Yeah, it's just like they're less likely to go to an I've never been to a nutritionalist,
That's
and
what I'm saying.
I feel like it's kind of rare for us. Do you think it's a bit different in the US? Like, do you have actually, I have a question. Like, is your client base, is it a lot of people from the US or is it really just anywhere?
I have people all around the world, but the US is kind of my primary base for clients. I think it's because I built my business in the US.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But do you think there's a stigma? Because when I hear nutritionist, I'm like, I hear of like you have to pay. I feel like as if you have to be a certain type of lifestyle type of nutritionist. Do you feel like there's a stigma still associated with having a nutritionist, or just being cognitive or being conscious about your health and being aggressive with the nutrition you take? I feel like sometimes there's like Chris said, you eat regular food, you go to the doctor once or twice a year, and then afterwards that's it. You don't really pay attention to what you eat, because I feel like once you do is there's a stigma associated with like, okay, well, you're trying to be bougie or something like that.
Yeah, you're bougie.
I feel like it's the same if you look at a nutritionist as a personal trainer. It's kind of like the same approach. Like some people have money, some people don't. You're never going to spend money on a nutritionist if you're trying to make your rent, right? And I think that's messed up in terms of like this information should be accessible. It should be everywhere. Everyone can benefit from it, and especially because there are so many budget-friendly options. But it's the exact same thing with working out and with personal training. There are more budget-friendly options, and then there's of course like the super bougie high-tier options as well. So I feel like it's the same.
I think now with YouTube, like it eases it because there's a lot of free information out there for anything, literally anything, like nutrition, personal training, all of that. So.
Yeah, I think if you if someone generally wants to learn about nutrition, they can get a good understanding from just for free watching YouTube videos and stuff. Do you have recommendations of podcasts or YouTube videos or people that you've learned a lot from when it comes to nutrition? Because I'm so obsessed with listening to podcasts recently, specifically about nutrition. I'm going crazy every day, listening to different podcasts. And so have you listened to any yourself or learned anything from anyone that you can recommend?
Yeah, you were actually listening to my guy earlier today. I saw on your Instagram story you were listening to The Genius Life. Yeah. Max Lugavere, I love him. I
just started it. I love him too. Oh my God.
I would highly recommend his book, Genius Foods, as well. He's really awesome. I feel like he does an excellent job of taking food for cognitive performance and for brain health in general, and taking the academic research and putting it in layman's terms and actually making it accessible to the general public. So I really, really like him for that. Very accessible information. He's had an excellent list of hosts or guests lately.
You guys actually have a similar story too of where you both, because he had the same story where his mom had Alzheimer's and everything. So it was interesting when you said that. That was the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, that's why I really resonated with his story and with his content and everything. And he was one of the first podcasts and first actual brain focused nutrition books that I dived into. So love him for that. Another one that today. Yeah, another one that I'm obsessed with is Andrew Huberman's podcast. He's a neuroscientist.
I just discovered him too. Yep. I literally just discovered him 2 days ago.
Fascinating. He is absolutely fascinating. He's a neuroscientist at Stanford, and he's created this podcast where he takes neuroscience information that's actually applicable to your nutrition and lifestyle and gives you free things that you can do to really improve your overall health and wellness. So I would say those are two amazing people that are extremely evidence-based, that are actually diving into the science and making it accessible and understandable for everyone.
Nice. Good to know.
Nice. do you want to talk a bit about like yourself outside of nutrition, like what you do, your hobbies and stuff like that?
Sure. So I am a big fan of traveling. I travel to a new country every 1 to 2 months. I'm young. I have the ability to work from anywhere, and I'm trying to take advantage of that. And I want to see the world. There's so many cultures I want to explore, languages I want to learn, food I want to eat, experiences I want to have. So that's kind of my main hobby as of right now is traveling the world and doing like travel hacking. So I'm really big into like the credit card points thing and getting all business class, business flights and all that kind of stuff. I'm all about like hacking it and getting, the most bang for my buck for that. So that's really kind of my main thing that I like to do in terms of hobbies. And then I love working out. I think it's so cool that we have so much power over our bodies and that we can literally shape them in whatever way we want. We can get whatever we want out of them if we put in the right effort and we have the right knowledge around it. So I'm very much into seeing everything that I can get out of my body, whether it is trying a new like dance class to learn a new routine, or just going and seeing if I can max out on weights, or having fun messing around at like a pole dancing class or something just really fun and out there in a way to give me an opportunity to try new things. So that is kind of my two favorite things at the moment to do.
What's your favorite place you've ever been to?
That's the hardest question I've ever been asked. That's really difficult because I feel like I have three favorites. So I would say that for like a beach place that I've been, and for the spiritual component of it, the entrepreneurial component of it, Tulum is one of my favorite places. I just keep finding myself coming back here. There's so much here. You gotta come. There's so many things to do here. There's just so much life and vibrancy, and everyone you meet here is on a vibe that is really empowering and uplifting. And then I would say Medellin would be my second favorite that I've been to. That's I was just there for a few months in Colombia.
Is that Colombia?
Yeah, it's a huge digital nomad hub in South America.
I would have never guessed.
Oh my God. It's one of the funnest places I've ever been. It's so much fun. The food is incredible. The people are the kindest I've ever met. And it's a lot more of a city vibe, but you can go 45 minutes outside the city and get a lot of nature. So there's a lot of things to do there. And a ton of entrepreneurs because it's a digital nomad scene. So the collaborations were crazy there. There's just so much, I would say, encouraging feeling around business. Everyone there is talking about what they're doing, how they're up leveling. And that's just, that's the energy I want to be around.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Exactly. And then Barcelona is my third favorite.
Oh yeah. We went to Barcelona. It was so nice. Oh, yeah, I love Spain.
There's nothing wrong with it. That's just one of the best places in general to me.
Yeah.
Facts.
I just want to take things a little bit towards entrepreneurship, because our podcast, we really like, I don't know, like most of our guests are entrepreneurs or someone that's doing something interesting, right? Like that's kind of what we want to show, just like different ways of making money and like different ways of, leveling up or personal development. Those, like, that's basically what we want to show on this podcast. What made you realize that you could turn your background or like your degree into your own business? When did that? I mean, you touched a bit on it in the introduction, but what really made you realize that you could turn this into your own business? And was it traveling? Because I know you love traveling, but what was the first thing that made you first do that switch over to having your own business?
Well, before I even apprenticed with a naturopathic doctor, I had just decided I was going to do nothing. I had set the goal of, I'm not trying to make money. I'm going to dig myself a hole and I'm going to be okay with it. And I'm just going to find out what truly sets my soul on fire. What would I literally do for free? That was the entire goal, is figuring out what am I going to spend, what am I going to drain my bank account doing and enjoy the process. And so that's what I did. I found out it was holistic nutrition. And through my practice and education, I realized, okay, this is really where I want to niche down into. But throughout that process, and I was training and I wasn't really working with anyone. I was just learning, but I was so overwhelmed by everything that I was learning in the best way. I had to share it. Like I couldn't shut up about it. Anyone that I talked to, I had to bring it up in conversation. And that's when I started selling on my stories before I even knew I was doing it, is I would get on there and I'd be like, this is what I learned today. This is what, this is what this paper says. This is what this book says. This is what I learned today in training. This is what I learned today in school. And I couldn't keep it inside myself. And I had people lining up in my DMs to work with me. And I was like, I'm not even working with people. This isn't a business. I'm just training. I'm apprenticing. I'm helping someone else.
Yeah.
And after about a year and a half of that, I was like, I really could do this. And so I decided I'm going to take a chance on myself and I'm going to do it. So then right before COVID, I did it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of businesses start by accident where like you're just posting stuff and then you realize there's a demand for it, or like people are asking for something and you're like, wait a minute, I can turn this into a business. So I feel like a lot of times like that's kind of how it happens, which is really cool. But I feel like we can all feel your passion for nutrition, and like we can, and like you're so knowledgeable. You have like you just know so many things that I'm sure some of the stuff you said we don't even fully understand. How exactly.
Yeah, she said something. It sounded like a Harry Potter spell. I forgot what it was.
Yeah, like we're not knowledgeable enough to fully have a deep nutrition conversation with you. So we can feel how knowledgeable and passionate you are about this.
Thank you.
I think this might be our most impactful episodes.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because we've been saying like this, like for the past couple of episodes, we have some segments where we're like, oh my God, the food industry, and like talking about different things. And we're like, guys, we need to get someone who actually knows what the hell they're talking about. And you're literally the person that knows what you're talking about.
I'll take a moment because I have one question. Like my goal is to buy like maybe 1 acre, 2 acres, and just like have a farm. Are there any specific foods or any plants or any vegetables that I should look to have, that I must have to have on a organic farm?
Whatever you like, whatever you're actually going to eat. That I would say that's the most important thing. I don't think you need to have any one particular thing. When it comes to actually the farming, you want to make sure you're not doing monoculture cropping. That is going to ruin your soil quality and lead to lower nutrient values and mineral values of the soil and the food that's produced from it. So that would be basically, like we learned in school, just rotating your crops, making sure you have a variety of different things. Make sure you can build your own meal out of everything that you have in your garden. Make sure you have like enough for a salad or for a stew or something like that. Try not to just do one row of 100 different spinaches, make sure you have a little bit of variety of things that you're actually going to consume and you're going to enjoy consuming.
I feel like that's everyone's dream, is to just like live on a farm. Well, at least mine. Like I just want to like.
I'm right there with you.
I just want to like leave the city.
Like she just wants to live on a farm.
Yeah, like I'm always like, please, one day.
Imagine being like self-sustaining. You don't have to go to the grocery store. You just go like pick something.
And I feel like everything in the food industry is so filled with like garbage, and just like there's so much like, I don't know. I feel like there's so many commercials and like promotion of foods that are not actually healthy for us. So I feel like the best possible thing you can do, maybe I'm wrong, but is to just literally grow your own food. And like, would you ever have your own like chickens? Like I always see people doing that and I find it so strange, but I feel like that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, have your own egg.
I grew up with that. My parents like had chickens. Way. Yeah, up until I was in college.
Oh my God. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, my mom would grow stuff. Like I remember anytime I'd go home in college, I love cooking Italian food. So she'd have fresh basil and go pick it off. She would have fresh tomatoes from the garden, and she would make a much better sauce than I would, but she would make that one that had all these fresh ingredients, and it was just mind blowing. The quality, the taste of it. It was so simple. Different. It was like some high quality olive oil, a few different herbs, and then fresh vegetables from the garden. And it was just incredible. So, I mean, food definitely tastes better. It's really more nutritious, accessible, cheaper, all that kind of stuff. But you can also start really slow. You can just get like a basil plant or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna
start. Not have the full organic farm yet.
You need urban farming. You gotta Google, because I want people to know that Bill Gates is gonna buy every farmland available, and then afterwards there's gonna be a monopolistic. Groceries are just buying each other. So at the end of the day, your supply chain is gonna be controlled. So if you could be self-sufficient before that happens, it's probably the best thing that can happen. Because you're either gonna, the moment they cut off what's available, then you starve to death, or prices are going to increase so high you can't afford it, so you're going to die. So you have two options.
Get sustainable.
Are we ending the podcast on that?
Yeah, there you go. PSA. PSA.
That's too dark. So you're gonna die. End of
Yeah.
No. If you have your own basil plant, you'll be good.
Facts.
That's my people
It's
in
a basil
Brooklyn that had
plant.
the little basil on the wall.
Yeah.
Did you guys have any other questions for Kacy?
Well, the last question is, where do you see yourself in 5 years, and where can people find you on the internet? I know you mentioned
The
Instagram
Jay-Z
briefly,
question too.
but you know you got to take the cash, bro.
In 5 years, that's super hard because I don't even know where I'm going to be in a month. That's like physically speaking, I don't know where. And I kind of like the way that I'm living right now. I've spent a lot of my life with that perfect 10, 20, 30-year plan. And I realized that plans don't work out. I can have intentions, but I'm not going to try and nail myself down to a perfect plan. I can have goals. I know what I want to accomplish. I want to expand my business in the next year. I want to find a country that I want to actually stay in the next 5 years. But other than that, I want to continue living my life, seeing as much as I can and helping as many and impacting as many people as I can. However that's supposed to work out, I'm down for it. I'm down for the ride. I just want to make sure I'm showing up as my best self every single day and really learning from everyone that I interact with and exploring as much of the world as possible.
Yeah, and where could the people find you?
The Neuronutritionist on Instagram and on TikTok, and then kacyshea.com for more information on my services.
Should we ask the Jay-Z question or fuck?
Yeah, go for it.
So this is the final question. You either have the option of receiving $500,000 or you get to sit down with Jay-Z for an hour.
Jay-Z.
No.
Oh,
really?
You found the one person. I think that's you're the first person other than Charl that says that.
And why? Why
you need to explain.
He's made a lot more money than that, and you can give me money, and yeah, I can do stuff with money. That's awesome, but I'd rather learn how to make that money than someone just hand me money.
Crazy. Okay.
Yeah, end the podcast. End the podcast. Thank you.
All right, well, Kacy, it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to
I
do this
really
with
appreciate it. This was so informative.
Yeah.
I literally have to go back and re-listen to everything you said and take notes.
Thanks for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Untold Gems podcast, and we'll see you next week.